Welcome back. David Hertel in for Elias. Well, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, CIJA, has decided to send Canadians, a group of Canadians, high-profile Canadians from different walks of life, to witness firsthand the aftermath of the October 7th attacks. And we are on the phone right now with one of those Canadians who is speaking to us from the old city of Jerusalem. Laryssa Waler is on the line. Good morning, or I should say, good evening, Laryssa.
Good evening here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I chuckled when you said high-profile Canadians. I wouldn't describe myself as such.
Well, that was my first question, because this is what the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs thinks of you. So take it as a compliment, okay?
I do.
So first of all, maybe tell us more about yourself. What do you do when you're in Canada?
Yeah, so I'm a public affairs consultant, and I do I've been involved in politics my whole life, and so part of that involves, doing things like talking to radio hosts or talking to political panels. So that's why I'm on this trip, or why I was selected to do this trip, because I tend to try to talk to people from the platform I have. I'm of Ukrainian background, actually, and
so you've been going through a lot as well over the past few years. Yeah, of course. So,
right. Yeah. So,
sorry,
go ahead.
No, please. Sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah. So my interest in participating in this trip really also comes from just, going through the Russian invasion of Ukraine over the last 2 years, seeing how my own community, my own family's been coping. And I wanted to come to Israel to see, not just how Jews are faring, but how Christians and Muslims and Druze and Bedouins, who are also impacted by the events of October 7th, and how they're doing as well.
Okay, very interesting. So when did you arrive in Israel?
It's Thursday. We arrived on Sunday.
Okay, so what have you seen so far?
So it's actually been quite a priority for our program to spend time with different communities. Our first night there, we went to this area in Tel Aviv called Hostage Square, and the first people we met were people running a support center for families of hostage victims, and it's housed in this former tech building that this company just gave it over to, this sort of grassroots effort. And I'll tell you that the one thing that really struck me, that I think is lost maybe on Canadians sometimes, is how much Israelis of all faiths are still sort of stuck on October 7th. And they can't move forward until their hostages are home. And any discussion of a ceasefire, any discussion of a two-state solution, really almost anything, won't proceed in the eyes of many Israelis until the hostages are returned.
That's very interesting. So what else have you witnessed? I mean, have you seen the sites of the attacks? Or are you planning to?
No, we did. We went to the set of the Nova the Nova Music Festival, where there was that massive massacre of over 300, frankly, young adults and teenagers. We saw the makeshift memorials there. We toured different kibbutzes and neighborhoods that were attacked. We saw the bullet holes. We saw the burnt out buildings. We saw where people were just butchered in the street. We saw where the terrorists paraglided in. We went right up to the Gazan border. So we saw the big wall that was supposed to, keep them safe. We also, interestingly, met with the Bedouin community, and they very graciously hosted us as a very small community here. But, they still have 2 hostages that haven't come home yet. They had one teenage son that came home. We met with him. Yesterday, we met with the Druze community, which is a very small religion here in Israel. It's actually all over the Middle East, but in Israel, it's very small. And their religions derive from the Muslim faith, and they have a very proud tradition of military service here in Israel.
So what is the reaction from Muslims who are in Israel to what's going on since October 7th? The attacks, but also, as you know, being from Canada, the focus over here in North America has been more on the response by Israel. in
Yeah.
Gaza. And so how do Muslims living in Israel feel about the situation right now?
First, let me make a general observation, because it's true of all faiths: Jews, Muslim, Christian, Bedouin, Druze, all the communities you met with. I have not met an Israeli who hasn't been so critical of their government to have allowed October 7th to happen. They have, various interpretations of how we got here, both over the years and over the decades, and in the immediate kind of time leading up with the security failures. And then since then, again, being quite critical of the government response internally. In terms of the Muslim-Israeli response here, I mean, our driver who drives us around on to all these sites is an Arab Muslim, who would identify as Palestinian. And I'll say it's tense, right? It's tense.
Right.
There's no mandatory military service for Muslim Israelis because they understand the tension that you'd be fighting your own people, right? But there's some people who I've met who are quite harsh with Israel's response. But there's a lot of people who I've met who think it's not harsh enough. And uniformly, and I'll say this is absolutely true of the Muslims I've met as well, they believe that there is no moving forward until Hamas is destroyed, absolutely destroyed. Because you can't have any sort of ceasefire with Hamas. You can't have a two-state solution with Hamas. You can't do anything if Hamas is still there. And right now, Hamas is wildly popular both on the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank.
The conversation here is revolving a lot on, for example, last week, the International Court of Justice preliminary decision. While disappointing South Africa, which was the country who filed the complaint, at the same time, in the judgment, there was talk of Israel needing to not commit acts of genocide moving forward. The human toll, the humanitarian organizations talking about what's going on in Gaza right now. How any of that is being discussed, if at all, in your conversations?
It's absolutely being discussed. With the case in South Africa, if you ask Israelis who are quite open to a discussion, they'll say that the evidence that South Africa, brought forward was from the UN, and the UN used UNRWA, which has now been shown to be quite heavily associated and, frankly, infiltrated by Hamas. The idea that Israel is guilty of a genocide against a people who are actually trying to commit genocide against them, it's in their founding charter. And so most of the Israelis I've spoken to, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, everybody has said, what is Israel supposed to do? They are in the most impossible situation. If they do nothing, Hamas has said they will repeat October 7th. They will repeat it again and again. They want to kill Jews. If they pull back, if they agree to ceasefire, they are opening themselves up to more murder, more torture, more terrorism. And so they have been quite methodically, going through urban warfare, and that's a really dangerous, difficult, awful thing to have to participate in. And Israel has said, we didn't want this war. We didn't want to have to do this. But since you started it, we're going to finish it.
All right. That's all the time I have, unfortunately. Laryssa, I want to thank you for taking the time, for speaking with us. Stay safe and good rest of trip.
I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
All right. Laryssa Waler. She is a public affairs consultant, head of her own firm, and also she was in politics before. She worked in the Ford government in Ontario and also in the Harper government previously.